Well, hello there, Meow Mentors. It's Cat Lady Justin. This is the Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. I am here once again with our co-host with the most, Dr. Rachel Geller, the world's foremost cat behaviorist and cat chaplain, and the founder and president of All Cats All the Time. So if you are on low income, don't let that be an excuse for getting a cat. You can have a cat, and Dr. Rachel will make sure of that. I rhymed. However, if you notice, there is another very special guest here. Scott Colby is a podcaster like me, a podcatster. His podcast is called Golden Whiskers, and it's all about cat wellness. He interviews people who are experts in cat wellness, such as veterinarians, or like the episode that just dropped today, Dr. Rachel Geller, a cat behaviorist. So, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Hello again, Dr. Rachel. Good to see you both.
Hello, thank you. Well, you just saw her, and I will be on the show very soon. I just have to sign up to do that. So make sure you tune into my episode, but the episode dropped today, so definitely go and listen to Dr. Rachel Geller. And Dr. Rachel Geller, it is definitely springtime now. It's getting warm, so welcome to the show again. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. I love the spring. I love when we go over things that have to do with wellness and things that might particularly pop up in the springtime. So this is just a perfect opportunity to have all of us together to talk about cat wellness today.
Yeah, certainly is. We, in March, we obviously had St. Patrick's Day and all those celebrations and all of that. And in April, showers bring May flowers is what they say. So we're definitely in springtime now. I also had a birthday. We're not going to say how old, right? So please don't say that. But, because I want people to use their imaginations and think, Cat Lady Justin, about, 28, maybe 34 at the most. I want people to think that, really, even though it's a dirty lie. So, but yeah, and Scott is celebrating a birthday in a couple weeks, aren't you?
I am, and we will not reveal the age either.
Don't worry,
We'll let you use your imagination.
Your secret is safe with me. But he's got a hat on, guys. I'm just going to say that, he's got a hat on, no hat there. Anyway, it's fine, That's Ron. Is it a Ron Howard under there?
Oh, Ron Howard, yes. So, yeah.
Here we go. Yep. Yep. Yeah, so he's over 20. We know that much. But in any case,
And younger than 90.
Well, there you go. And I have a friend who's 92, so that's absolutely fine.
No, yes.
There you go. So today we're obviously going to talk a lot with. What's that?
I do not have my hat on.
No, Rachel does not have her hat on. Rachel obviously does not have any like plugs or extensions or anything, because that would be quite obvious. And look at that hair. And by the way, there's not too much gray in that, is there? No, not too much. Maybe just a little. Anyway, Scott is going to be the focus of, we're going to talk to Scott and find out more about his journey and everything. And along the way, let's, obviously talk a little bit about things to do with springtime. But one thing I would like us to focus on, because I was joking about the birthday thing, but I'd like to talk a little bit this episode about aging and cats and as they get older, partly because, hey, I'm thinking about it, but also because Emily's birthday, my cat Emily, is in May. Charlotte's is in September, but Emily's in May. They're both senior cats now. Emily's going to be, 16 years old, and Charlotte's then going to be turning 13 or 14. The point is I'd like to talk a little bit about aging and cats and what we can do to help them, have a happy life and a long life, because, the longer they live, the better, I think, right? Let's have this next. I'd like each one to maximize the time that we have together in good health. And yes. I also like to touch upon when is holding on too long and becomes a selfish act, because that can also be a thing where people just refuse to let go, and the poor creature is obviously suffering. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. But first, Scott, let's talk about something fun. What made you dive into creating this podcast?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I have been a cat dad for over 21 years now. I did have 2 senior cats. Speaking of aging cats, that passed away. They were siblings, but not from the same litter. But I adopted them together. They were a boy and a girl cat. Nomar. So Dr. Rachel loves the name Nomar. That was one of my cat's named after Nomar Garcia Parra,
Oh,
and
right.
Dr.
Red
Rachel's
Sox.
a Red Sox fan. Yeah,
Right, because I was
he's
going to ask, what is that all about? I've never heard that name before, but obviously, yeah, I'm not a baseball fan. I always like to joke with Dr. Rachel and say I'm not a football fan, because I know it's not football, but anyway.
and and it was Nomar and Mia. So Mia was named after Mia Hamm, the soccer player, and that those two athletes are married in real life. So that's how they got their names. Nomar passed away in 2019 at age 16, and then Mia passed away in 2023 at age 20. And in fact, her birthday was yesterday. She would have been 22. But so April birthdays that they both had. But anyway, when they passed away, it was my first time experiencing the loss of a pet and going through the grieving process. And it hit me hard both times. I'd never experienced anything like that. And through my grieving and through the process of finding my way through grief, I decided that I wanted to create a lasting impact in their honor. So, and it's kind of evolved into different stages. The first thing I did was I put together a couple fundraisers here locally in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live. I did that last year through a kitten yoga experience and then a hiking fundraiser in their honor. And I decided I wanted to do something that impacted more people and helped people's cats live longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to interview people like Dr. Rachel and some other incredible feline wellness experts in a virtual summit that I hosted earlier this year. And selfishly, I'm doing it not only to help me process my grief, but also I have two new cats now. They're both one, Nico and Milo. They're bonded brothers, and so my goal. I'm not a vet and I'm not a behaviorist, so I'm learning as the audience is learning. I'm learning what to do to raise them so that they can have, Mia and Nomar had long lives. 16 and 20 is definitely long, but especially with Mia, she was ill, sick her last 3.5 years through kidney disease, lymphoma, arthritis, mouth dental issues, things like that. So I'm hoping to help Nico and Milo live their longest, healthiest, and happiest lives without going through a lot of those illnesses that Mia went through. So that was my inspiration for hosting a feline wellness summit. And
Yeah.
now, like you mentioned, I've got the Golden Whiskers podcast and
And that's
newsletter.
and that's lovely, because one thing I would say is that you're not a vet, you're not a behaviorist. Okay, that's fine for disclaimers. We can put that on there and tell people that. But 22 years of experience as a cat dad is experience under fire, is experience, is expertise by experience. So in no way should we, I don't think, position you, let's say, as this novice who doesn't know what he's doing. Learning with the audience, absolutely. I learn every day with Dr. Rachel, with you, with everybody who comes on the show. Absolutely. I've owned cats since I was a child. My dad owned cats, my mom, so I've owned cats since I was 0. So I have, I'm not going to say how many, I'll just say decades of experience, more than 22, because I was about to say it and I'm like, I don't want to reveal my age. But in any case, I have decades of experience as a cat dad, a cat owner, and I've had many cats of different, usually mixed. I've never had a purebred, but I've had many different cats, and I have also had cats who got old and passed away, and so did my parents. And I think that you have to acknowledge 22 years of experience under fire, owning a cat, having it live long. You've learned a ton of stuff doing that.
He really has. And I will say too that what I find really interesting and special about your podcast, Scott, is that learning element. So Justin, when I was interviewed by Scott, and I know he does this with everybody, he will then take what I said, apply it to maybe what he has done or has not done or has done that could use some accommodations or modifications with his own cat. So we'll end every podcast with, what did I learn? What was I doing? What could I do better? What do I wish I had known before? So he really frames it in a way that everyone who's listening can really learn. So not only is Scott, elevating his knowledge of cats, but he frames it in a way that everybody listening just won't be entertained, but they can take away actionable solutions that are easy to implement and easily explained.
Yeah, so you're a teacher, and you're a teacher. You're teaching people, even though you're learning with them. You're encapsulating the knowledge and teaching them, which I think is fantastic to do, because that's the best thing, is when something can educate, entertain, and enlighten, all three ways. And different people learn different ways, and a lot of people need to have something handed to them, on a silver platter and made very, very easy, so they don't have to go and look for the information. There it is. I've just summarized it for you. So I think that's fantastic, because it's an actual teaching experience. It could turn it into a course, the kitty course. There you go. There's create the kitty course by Scott Colby. I think that would be fun. That'd be really cool. After you have a few episodes, maybe, I don't know, 6 or 10 or whatever, just call it the kitty course, and you have a kitty course right there in front of you, and then you can just sell that. But I think that's great, and that's very, very unique. 22 years, you definitely have all the expertise that you need to teach about cats. The one thing that did come to mind as I did interview on the podcast a while ago. I think it was an additional episode to Rachel. So Rachel wasn't there. The founder of a food, pet food company. They with cats and dogs here in the UK. So it's not for the US audience. And he was going through in detail the process of how they make the food and the level of clinical grade cleanliness and hygiene in their facility, and the level of selection of the ingredients all being human grade ingredients. And one thing that happens is that it is made into the pate while they have this proprietary process, while it is still frozen. And the first time it is defrosted, it's fresh, obviously, when it comes from the butcher, frozen, made into the pate. And the first time it's defrosted is when you defrost it at home, because it's delivered in the freeze bags and all that stuff, is when you defrost it at home. And the reason all of that is important is because the food is raw food. And a lot of people, rightly so, are concerned about contaminants, about bacteria or salmonella and other things that could be toxic or poisonous when you go into a raw food diet for your pet. But what this founder was talking about was the process. And they have a certification here in the UK called Raw Safe. And that would mean that it's been certified that at every step of the way, there is no possibility of contamination, which I found interesting, because when I interviewed him, there had recently been a contamination, but not in a raw food, in a mainstream pet food store, global manufacturing pet food that anyone would know the name of, because it's sold in the US, it's sold here, and thousands of cats had died of poisoning from that food. So I was like, look, okay, that just happened. Your process, you've been around for 5 years. There's never been one issue, neither with a cat nor a dog. And it's absolutely great. And the reason I interviewed him is because I put my cats on that food. The reason I did that is because I thought, okay, well, I'm sold on this. It sounds good, but it's a bit expensive. But he had this trial offer at the time. Now the trial offer is 40% discount, but at the time it was ridiculous. It was like 2 cents per meal for the cat. It was what in retail they would call a loss leader. So he's giving you 2 weeks of cat food for next to nothing. The idea being it's going to be so good that that's it. You're going to subscribe. So and get it delivered every 2 weeks or every month or whatever. So that's what I did. And I thought, look, I got nothing to lose. At this price, it was 12 pounds, which is about $15. 2 weeks of cat food for 2 cats for that price. The worst that could happen is they hate it. They won't touch it. It's got to be frozen, so it's going to be a waste. And I don't like waste, but it's going to be a waste. And that's the worst case scenario. But no, they loved it. They ate it. And I told him this, to my total surprise. I wasn't expecting it. The dandruff that they had both of them disappeared. And I have a long hair and a short hair, and they both had dandruff. That went away. And I brushed them every day. And the long hair would get mats and knots. And I'm brushing her every day, Charlotte. She still would get the damn knots. And I'd have to even once it was so bad, you had to go to the vet to get it shaved off. It cost me 60 pounds, which is probably like $80. And it was driving me nuts. She hasn't had any of that problem. And I don't brush her anymore. This is a long hair cat that needs brushing once a month at the most. And I just changed her diet into this. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. It made the knots and mats go away. How does that work? I was totally blown away by that. And it's been years now on this food, and she's never had another issue like that. It's helped with so many different things. Anyone who comes and visits and sees them live, looks at their eyes, their coats and everything, can't believe that they're senior cats, because they look and they behave and energetically like normal, like young cats, not like kittens, but like young cats. And it's all down to when I switched them to that diet. So I say that because I think for now I can see that one thing makes all the difference. Now, for anyone listening in the UK, it's called Bella and Duke. And if you need to know send me a message and I'll, of course, share with you their website. If you're in the USA, that doesn't help you. It's not available over there. It's not shipped internationally. It's only shipped in the United Kingdom. They're based in Scotland. And if you're in the USA, I'm pretty sure there are some very good raw cat suppliers there, but I'm not 100% sure. I would assume so. But that one switch made all the difference, honestly. And on the occasions where they have like a treat or a snack, or I've run out and forgot to reorder and they have something else, even organic, really good stuff, bit of dandruff comes back, knot appears. I mean, it really is that dramatic that even high quality, expensive cat food that's processed, even if it's organic, is not as good as this stuff. So I would encourage people to at least research that, but make sure, like mine, that it is safe, that the process that they use leaves no door open to contamination and bacteria and anything else, because that is the risk with that. But that's the risk with any pet food, any cat food. So you have that risk no matter what. But with the raw food, people are extra worried. So just make sure it's a good process, and the company is really diligent about that, and you'll be fine. But anyway, that came to mind because we were talking about senior cats and your cats and everything and all that. Anyway, Dr. Rachel, anything you'd add to those observations?
In terms of senior cats, they do have a lot of their own needs, everything from the litter box to play style to making sure that you get more frequent vet visits, because they are more prone to more illnesses as they get older. Cats, as they get older, are more prone to hyperthyroidism. They're more prone to kidney disease. They're more likely to have things happen like going deaf or going blind. So senior care is really, really important. As far as food goes, there are many cats who are sensitive towards different ingredients or different items in cat food. And there are a lot of cats who have sensitive skin, have sensitive stomachs, so they need to really be on a particular diet. And that's something that people can always discuss with the veterinarian if they're not sure. But it is really important to meet their nutritional needs, and even more so as they do become older. And one thing I will really make sure people do is water. Water is so essential for a cat's health, and many indoor domesticated cats don't drink enough water. The reason for this is that we usually tend to put out a bowl of water, and there are many cats who won't drink from a bowl for several reasons. The most common being that it's a survival instinct. So cats, if they're outside, quote unquote, in the wild, they will prefer to drink from running streams or water that's moving, because water that's stagnant is a signal to a cat that there's probably diseases or microorganisms or bacteria that is building in water that's not moving. So many cats won't drink out of a water bowl. The other reason they won't drink out of a water bowl is if it's too deep and narrow, it can cause whisker fatigue, which is their whiskers are always rubbing against the sides. So some cats, if they're not drinking enough, you may want to invest in a fountain. If they that usually solves the movement problem. But in general, make sure the bowl is shallow and very, very wide so the whiskers don't rub against the bowl. And if your cat still isn't drinking enough water, you can always mix in a little bit of water with the wet food, just enough, so it's a little extra. It's just a teeny bit soupy, and you'll get extra water that way. But as cats age, all cats should drink enough water, but as they age, it becomes even more important.
Yeah, I mean, the same is true of people, isn't it? I don't drink it. I
Yes.
need to drink more water, to be honest with you. And then there's a good point. And Scott, maybe I don't know if you noticed this when your previous cats got older, but Emily certainly now in the last year, I would say, has gotten very clingy. My cats have always been pretty clingy because they're indoor cats. We go out to the garden once in a while together, but they're indoor cats and they've been with me their whole lives. So, they've always been pretty, I call them puppies sometimes because it's cute the way I get followed around and all that. It's not, it's not your stereotype cat behavior. But I noticed that Emily, in the last year and a half, has gotten very clingy, like very much like, wants, my attention, to monopolize my attention quite a lot, a lot more than she did before. Like she'll come look for me, or if I go to downstairs or upstairs or whatever, like she wants to know where I am and meow, 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 where are you, and then she comes and finds me and all of that. Did you experience anything like that when yours got older?
Yeah, for sure. So, like yours, mine were indoor cats only. I didn't even have a garden to take them out to. And so I felt like they were, kind of always around me, but still on occasion will have their independent needs where they'll go off and do their own thing. When Nomar died, again, so they were both 16 when Nomar passed away. And I felt like Mia went through her own grieving process. She actually, with interesting timing, she was diagnosed with kidney disease, and then 4 days later, Nomar passed away unexpectedly. He wasn't diagnosed with anything. And I felt like part of Mia's behavior was that she did become more clingy, perhaps partly due to grieving without Nomar, partly because, like, yes, I've got Scott's full attention now. I don't have to share him because I think there was some of that going on. And then partly because she was becoming ill to where I felt like by the end, I'm this 24/7 caretaker for her. She was always on me. At the end, she had a hard time with mobility. Even going up and down like the pet stairs was difficult for her.
All
So
right.
our last 6 months together, I slept on the floor. Basically, I put the sofa cushions down on the floor and slept with her so
Okay.
she couldn't get up and down. But she was always with me, just like right here. She was like every video call that I did, she's in every video there in the last year. Oh yeah, and there's Dr. Rachel's. Yeah. So yeah, I did feel like there was some clinginess, definitely more attachment to me. And I think that made the grieving was always going to be hard, but I felt like that, hey, here's somebody who's attached to me all day, every day, and then like one day that's gone. The physical attachment is gone now, and so that made it very difficult. The first few months of grieving after she passed away.
Yeah. So it's and Dr. Rachel is that's my understanding is that is a common
Yes.
thing.
So cats do grieve, and I will point out that just like us, they all grieve differently. So some cats really go through a full grieving process. Other cats are like, Puffy's gone. When's lunch? Like they really don't care that much. But some cats really, really care, and they'll go through this process where they're wandering around the house looking for the other cat, smelling, smelling, smelling. Think they can try to find the other cat. They may become more vocal because although cats really use their meows to communicate with us, they will meow to locate another cat in the household. So you may find your cat getting more vocal. You may find her walking, aimlessly around. And the other thing to remember is that we are sad. we are grieving, and our cats know this. Cats are very perceptive about our emotions, and I can't smell adrenaline on you, Scott, or pheromones on you, Justin, but our cats can. So when we're grieving and we're sad, we're emitting different hormones and pheromones than when we are happy. So our cats know when we are upset, and that can further their own upset. So a lot goes into it. I will say that you want to let your cat go through that grieving process. So if she's wandering around the house meowing, let her do that. That's okay. That's her way of grieving and her way of coping and her way of coming to acceptance. So it's okay to do that and just, let her go through that process. Try to refrain from, being overly comforting. Every time she's doing this, you don't want to pick her up. I know it's like human nature that we want to.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for me when that happens.
The challenge for me too is, and here I am, a certified cat behaviorist, but you do want to let them go through that process. You don't want to like reward them or make them think that they are right, or being like too worried or too scared or
Yeah.
confused. So you do want to let them go through that process.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. I
Yeah.
don't like it, but I get it.
Hard. We've all talked about how we've had cats, from day zero, and I'm in the same boat. I grew up with 4 cats and 2 dogs and several guinea pigs. We were a pet family. But so I understand. I've always had multi-cat households. I've gone through it so many times myself. I completely understand the unbearable sadness, that feeling of being inconsolable, that feeling of losing something very, very precious and connected to ourselves. But I love that so many people who love cats will open up their hearts to adopt another cat who needs a home, who needs love. And we never replace our previous cats. Our hearts have this remarkable ability to expand, and we can love our new cats while still loving just as much cats who have previously been in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, Scott mentioned earlier that he has 2 new cats that he just adopted after he went through his grieving process, and you don't forget your other pets. I certainly haven't forgotten the Leah and Iggy, and I haven't forgotten any of them. Just like you don't forget your relatives that aren't here, like my grandmama Leah. No, I had a cat and a grandmama with the same name. It's a bit weird, but yeah, it is what it is. But in any case, you don't forget the people in your life that have been there, that meaningful, and you don't forget the pets either. But I think the healthiest thing to do for yourself is to move on. And I think that they say that your loved one would want you to do that because they would want you to be happy. I can't be so sure that your cat would want you to move on because they can be quite possessive and selfish, but that's okay. I think for your sake, on the one hand, it's very healthy to say, fill that void and that gap with another love. And most people don't realize, the challenge is that most people don't realize it until they just take the plunge and do it. They think it's not going to help. I don't want another. But once that cat or kitten is there, that changes everything. I mean, I even know people who were dog people, diehard dog people, cat haters, and said, I'm never getting one of those things. Married someone who's a cat person, ended up, okay, fine. And then they're like, and now they're cat people. They still love dogs, but they're like, I didn't realize this could be so cool. So I think until you actually do it, you don't realize that you maybe even have the capacity to do it. You're so heartbroken. And I think it's important that for our own healing, that we go ahead with that we do get another cat. But on the other hand, or let's say complementary hand, there are so many cats in the world that need adoption,
Yes.
that need a loving home. It is partially, if you want to look at it this way, your responsibility because you have the experience, because you were successful at rearing and nurturing a cat, let's say pick, pamper, and protecting a practically perfect pussycat, and the pussycat is not here anymore. Oh, wow, That's a lovely kitty. Hi. Oh, which one is that?
This is Milo.
Oh, hi, Milo. Unfortunately, mine are not interested in today's episode, but sometimes they come, but not today. But in any case, when you have this experience, you have this knowledge, maybe you want to look at it this way. It's your responsibility to give another cat or cats a home now that you know what you're doing, because there are just too many that need a loving home. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for cats.
And
Either
what
way.
see to your cat who passed away than to save another cat's life.
Absolutely. I mean, Scott started a podcast in honor of his cats and did some fundraisers, and that's a wonderful way to honor them. But the number one best way to honor them is to adopt and give a loving home to fellow felines, as many as you want to. 1, 2, it doesn't matter. 3, 10, or our friends at the Cat Behavior Alliance. She had 17. At one point she had 21, and
Right now there's 19 cats. Yes.
19, 17. I mean, it fluctuates between, but it's always that number. I personally don't think I could handle that many, because that's a lot. I would like to have more, but I mean, that's a lot. But in any case, God bless her. I think it's adorable.
Yeah, I would love to have more than 2 cats, but my husband has asthma, so I'm sort of at my limit. I keep telling him that breathing is highly overrated, but that hasn't worked out so well for me yet.
To just tell them, it's systematic desensitization. You just need more exposure. That's a gradual exposure therapy, and you'll be all right. No, I don't know. I'm not a licensed medical doctor or allergist or anything. I've just had allergies in the past. But in any case, I just thought I'd share that, because I personally think, number one, it'll be good for you. You will heal better and faster once you do it. But number two, it's kind of your duty. You have the knowledge, you have the experience, you have the capacity, you have the home, you know what you're doing. There are too many cats that need a home. So just go ahead and do it. And then you'll thank me, because you'll be like, oh yeah, you were right. I'm doing it begrudgingly, because you said I owe it to catdom. But now, yeah, you're right. That did help me heal. I do feel a lot better. I still love Fluffy, but Camantha is just filled that void. I just made up some random cat names.
Justin, I'll share just briefly my
Yeah.
experience. So, because I was one of those that hesitated, should I adopt again? And so, like, I live alone in an apartment. And so when Mia passed away, I'm like, wow, I'm really alone. Like,
Yeah.
it's the first time in 20 years not coming home to cats, even. And so I actually was, through the grieving process, I was actually scared to come home, to not have any animals there. And
Oh
so I
yeah.
actually crashed on a friend's sofa for 3.5 months just to have the
Oh, right.
connection of somebody else. And she has a cat too, so that was fun. When I finally decided to get back into my apartment, I thought to myself, like, what's my next steps here? Like, I think I need a period with no pets and just see how I do. And eventually I thought about, well, okay, I think I'm interested in fostering, and let's see how I do there.
See how that goes. Yeah.
See how that goes. And then I ended up, so one of my issues was like, gosh, like there was so much time that went into Mia's final year, and it kind of like I don't want to say interfered, but I couldn't like do exactly everything in life that I wanted to do. So that was part of my hesitation. When I got Mia, Nico, and Milo at a cat cafe, and when I finally decided to pull the trigger and adopt them, in my mind I was like, I'm not sure I'm ready to, but I don't think I'm ever going to be 100% ready in my head. It's just got to be something that I do. And I think the final factor was, besides like knowing how like amazing Nico and Milo were at the cat cafe, was just thinking, like, I always said the best decision I ever made in my life was adopting Mia and Nomar. And I know even if I'm not 100% on Nico and Milo yet, I know I'm going to say eventually the best decision, the tied with that decision, will be adopting again. And so that was just my thought process. I hesitated, but I knew that the benefits were just going to be so amazing to adopt them and have two cats in my life again. For whatever it's worth, I know it's a personal decision, but that was kind of the thought process that went through my head.
That's fantastic. I think that's really good. And with your 22 years of experience as a cat dad, you know what you're doing. You definitely know what you're doing. Because I like to sometimes say, with the kitty boss, that we tend to obviously talk about and help everyone who owns a cat, regardless if they've had a lifetime of cats, 50 years of cats. But really, I'm out to persuade people who want a cat but think they can't have one because, I don't know, it's too expensive or they don't have time or money or whatever excuses come up. Just, the easy way to have a cat. It's like we talk about all these things and I talk about this food and that. None of that's necessary. So in a way, new cat, I'm kind of wanting to target new cat owners, people who don't know much about cats, and hopefully when they meet, Dr. Rachel Geller and they realize, oh, right, okay, she's a cat behavior. How cool is that? Nothing that she suggests about these issues that we talk about. None of that's really complicated. None of that's really like, oh my God, because there's a guy out there who's very famous cat, celebrity, and he's fantastic. And he has the TV show and the books and all that. But the issue I have with him is that he makes it look like all cats are from hell and it's gonna be difficult, and cats are, it's not like a dog that's easy, it's gonna be so it just makes it seem like cats are challenging, tough, creatures and pets to own. Even, and that's absolutely false. Those are the exceptions. Those are the rarities that make for great television and very great entertainment. But that's so rare. Most cats are not going to do that. They're not going to be nightmares from hell. They're not. They're really not. And the solutions that Dr. Rachel and I talk about for the most common and some less common cat behavioral issues are quite simple. They're very easy. They're not expensive solutions. And they're basically common sense if you think about it. But it's just sometimes you need a professional to help tell you, yeah, you just got to do that. Look, just shut the door and go through this quick process. It might take a week or something like that, but just keep it gradual and all that. And then they'll be friends again, as an example. So I think that's really important to break that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with
There
that
is
thing.
a lot of misinformation online.
So much misinformation.
Who are cat behaviorists or cat enthusiasts who, let's face it, somebody like the person you're referring to, like that's how they make their money. That's their job.
Exactly.
We need to always be aware of that. And the other thing is, I think what's so important about both of your podcasts, and I love the fact that you both give me an opportunity to come on and talk about cat behavior, because I feel like everybody knows about dog trainers. Everybody knows,
Yeah.
go find a dog trainer. You can teach your dog commands. You can modify a dog's behavior. But I find most people do not realize that there is such a thing as a cat behaviorist.
Yeah, that's it. I have a problem with my cat, so that's it. I'm going to get rid of it and give it up.
Right. We can solve that cat's behavior. And every time I'm on a show, I'll always get emails from people saying, I didn't know that there was such a thing as a cat behaviorist. I'm having this problem. I was thinking about surrendering my cat. Can you help? So I really do find that getting this information out, realizing that cat behavior is a thing. There are solutions, there are techniques. Most are very easy to implement. And so I feel like that topic is so important.
Yeah, I agree. And then, when we have guests like Scott who reveal their journey and their expertise and their gifts that they have to give with our audience and with their audience, and you can say, okay, yeah. So you find out it's not that tough to have a cat. You can have well, yeah, I can have a cat. And then you can go and learn from Scott about the wellness of the cat. And we talk about wellness, obviously, but he focuses on it in a teaching environment where you can learn about various aspects of it without overcomplicating things, but diving deeper into it than our show focuses on. Because again, my main thing is, there's so many cats out there that need a loving home. If by the end of this journey that I have, which hopefully will be longer than, short, if I can get a million more cats adopted into a loving home than are when I started, that would be a great dream. Now, will that happen? I don't know. But the thing is that that's what I want. That's the dream, is to get a million more cats into a loving home. Obviously, as quickly as possible. But, you know, if I could achieve that, that would be my aim. But the only way to do that is to debunk some of these myths, to crack some of these misconceptions and get them out of the way, and to get people to realize that it doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be time consuming, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated, and that's it really. And that there are resources as well. There are resources that are cost free or minimal cost, and that they can have a cat. In other words, the realization that you should have is, I can have a cat. Yes, I can. And what we talked about today, I think mainly the sort of natural thing that came up with this episode is, I've lost my cat. I'm grieving. A lot of people will say, I could never get another cat again. And hopefully now they realize, I could have a, maybe they can't say, I'm getting a cat now. I'm going right now. But maybe they can say, I could potentially have another cat, so that they're not saying, I'm never getting another one again. And I think if we can achieve that with this episode, I think that would be a great win. And that would be thanks to Scott and the journey that we discovered he went through, which, thank you for sharing that.
You're
Because
welcome.
I've gone through the loss of pets before, but they were previously when I was growing up. So they were shared, they were family, parents.
Mhm.
Now I have these two. The first ones they're just mine, and I am dreading I try not to think about it too much, but I am not. I realize we're heading in that direction, and we're getting closer and closer. I worry about that. How am I going to react? Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure
I
how,
think very,
you know,
very, yes.
I have images of my old boss, Charlie, when he lost his favorite dog. It's in California, because and this was tragic. It was run over on the highway outside Calabasas, over there in the hills, and the image of him in the middle of the 4-lane California highway. Luckily, there weren't that many cars, with the dog there, and he's screaming. It's like the scene from a movie, screaming and sobbing. I mean, you could hear it probably throughout the whole valley, but it was a scene from a movie, this drama of this heartbreak that he had. I don't think I'm going to do that, but I get that image in there, like that might be the level of emotion I experience. I'm just not sure.
Your heart will definitely be shattered.
We shall see. But
Your heart will be shattered, of course. And, when that happens, don't let the tears flow. Don't wipe the tears. They're there to get rid of emotions that have no place else to go. Cry as often as you want. And I will say from experience, and you guys can let me know, I feel like, you get this hole in the heart when you've lost a cat. I find that the hole really never goes away. You just get better at tiptoeing around it as the time goes on.
yeah, maybe.
You really never, never get that hole filled again.
I mean, I do when I do stress eat sometimes. So maybe, I'll be having a lot of chocolate, or maybe I'll have to fill that loss of one cat with compulsively getting like 3 or 4, like a 1-to-4 ratio. So I started with 2, and then the next step is I'll have 7. I think that might be a potentially thing. The other thing that comes to mind is, I think, Rachel, you probably know Vibeke Seymour, who's a pet bereavement specialist, right? Yeah. So we do know. I could call her and book a session with her and pay for a professional pet bereavement counseling session. Those do exist, by the way. So that's something I might consider doing. I'll see how it goes. Hopefully, it'll be a long time, because they can potentially live to 30.
Mhm.
I just saw yesterday the oldest cat who's alive today is like 30, potentially. So we shall see. I might have quite a long time left with these babes. So anyway, we're at the end of the show. So let's start. Scott, is there anything you'd care to say or ask before we end today's episode?
Just you said something that I just wanted to follow up on real quick with a pet grief counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, where I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where the University of Tennessee is. And just by coincidence, their vet social work department offers 6 free
Oh,
pet bereavement sessions, counseling sessions for anybody local that needs it. And they had an online platform that offered it to really anybody. So I was fortunate. So I did take advantage of that and went through several sessions, and that was helpful. I think just talking about it to
just
where,
talking about it. Yeah.
crying at first, but then now I'm to the point where I can talk about Mia and like I light up. Except for yesterday on her birthday, I did shed a few tears.
Yeah, which I think is safe and
Yeah,
fine to do
yeah.
you did love her and she loved you, and it's there.
Well, what
Rachel,
if you weren't sad? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
that would be weird. Yes, that would be very weird if you weren't sad. It'd be like, wait, dude, what was up with that? But yeah, I think it'd be natural. I mean, some people, and I do this to a certain extent, mask our emotions. So, or numb our emotions. So it may be that it comes into play of a level of masking and numbing the emotions more so than that. But if you weren't in reality, secretly or privately sad, then that would be a bizarre thing. So, Dr. Rachel, is anything you would care to say or ask before this episode ends?
By saying, first of all, to both of you, thank you for giving me a platform to talk about cat behavior. It's just such an important topic. And as you were saying, Justin, when you were talking about adopting another cat, there are way too many cats and there aren't enough shelters. And one of the top reasons people surrender a cat is due to behavior problems. So having this platform to get out and talk about cat behavior is really, really important to me. It's, pretty much been my personal mission in life to help people with their cats and to make sure there's never a financial barrier preventing people from keeping their cats. And these types of episodes are free. People can access them and learn about cat behavior. So I'll end by thanking you both for your interest in cat behavior as a topic.
Well, that's a perfect place to end the show. So thank you very much, Dr. Rachel Geller. Thank you very much, Scott Colby. And I will remind everyone that Dr. Rachel's episode dropped today on the Golden Whiskers podcast. That is our guest, Scott Colby's podcast, which basically reveals his 22 years of experience as a cat dad and connects with so many experts in various different fields of feline wisdom and shares them with you in a teaching method so that he sifts, sorts, and separates all the confusing information that's out there and presents to you what works and omits everything that doesn't. That's the Golden Whiskers. Watch her episode and then watch my episode whenever it drops. But I can't tell you when that's going to be. So it's Cat Lady Justin. This is the Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect and practice the perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. Turn in next month where we've got another surprise guest in the month of May. But these are evergreen episodes, so it doesn't matter when it is. There's always nuggets of gold in your litter box.